Hey everyone, it's Dr. Alioto here. Today I'm going to be talking about fatigue, so different causes of fatigue, how we can investigate what is the cause of fatigue, and then also a little bit about sleep, challenges falling asleep, staying asleep, some of the causes of that, and how you can try to support your sleep on your own. So let's get started. Fatigue is one of the most common things that I see in practice, whether it's the main complaint or a component of a complaint, right? So fatigue can be caused by many different things, right? We have just basic nutrient deficiency, right? We have iron deficiency, B vitamin deficiency, vitamin D deficiency, right? So some of that's kind of a more basic, right? Other causes can be endocrine dysfunctions, such as adrenal imbalances, so not making enough cortisol, your adrenals are too stressed out, thyroid imbalance, also part of the endocrine system, and or reproductive hormone imbalance. So if you're not making enough of these hormones, you can absolutely experience fatigue, right? Other basic causes are, not sleeping enough, not getting quality sleep, environmental causes of poor sleep, such as, too loud, babies crying, someone coming home late, neighbors, blasting music, whatever that might be there, right? So these are some of the basic causes of fatigue that I'm absolutely ruling out first and foremost. And we can do that with generally lab work, but also just based on history, right? When we get to more complex causes, these are things like depression, can be environmental toxins such as mold, heavy metals, non-heavy metals, these types of toxins that can, again, affect mitochondrial health, which are the cells in our body that make all of our energy, all of our ATP. So I call them the little athletes in our body, right? So if they are exhausted because they have been affected by toxins, then they're going to be tired. At the same time, when we have environmental toxins, not only do we have to detoxify them more, but it's also a matter of the immune system being involved. And so that can be fatiguing. So if we don't have a healthy immune system, then we can also be fatigued. Now, one of the most common causes of immune dysfunction and fatigue that I see is chronic underlying viral infections. So something about viruses is that once you see a virus, it's always in your body. It will always be there, but the immune system has figured out how to keep it suppressed, right? It's created antibodies. It's like, we got it. I figured this out, no problem. But when our immune system starts to not function as well, become immunocompromised, we can have these viruses start to show themselves as more chronic type of infection. This is very common with Epstein-Barr virus, which is the virus that we think of with mono, okay? It can also happen with cytomegalovirus, some of the herpes viruses. So that can be something that starts to rear its head, and it's exhausting for our body. So sometimes we also have weakness, brain fog, frequent illness that comes with that. Generally, I'm using not only history, but also, again, lab work for that. I can run lab work to identify mold, heavy metals, non-heavy metals, mitochondrial dysfunction, toxic load, genetic causes of fatigue, as well as the immune dysfunction. As we speak about immune, I don't want to put autoimmunity in a different category, because while many people deal with autoimmune diseases, it is something that is increasing in how many people are having autoimmune conditions. And there's various different types of autoimmunity. And it can be addressed and it can be treated. I will also say, again, it can cause fatigue. So what autoimmune disease is basically your body is overreacting to itself. So starting to attack itself. Very commonly, we think of autoimmune thyroid, right? Extremely fatiguing, as it can affect thyroid hormone, but not always. And it can also then affect the immune system. So that in itself is fatiguing. We can dampen that response. We can tell the body, hey, we don't need to have that really high response to my thyroid. We're okay, we're safe. And oftentimes we find that high inflammation, poor diet, poor gut health, high stress can make those presentations come on or make them worse. So there's a lot of things with lifestyle that we can do to manage, again, the root cause of fatigue, but there's not one treatment for fatigue, right? It depends on the root cause, because if you have a thyroid condition and I'm treating your adrenals, well, it might help a little bit, but that's not addressing the cause. Similarly, if we have an iron deficiency anemia and I'm treating chronic infection, well, that's not really going to be helping your energy, right? So we want to get at the root cause. So again, we have these basic causes and then more complex causes of fatigue. So as we're looking at different causes, we again want to investigate exactly what that cause is. And so again, as a naturopathic doctor, I use functional lab testing. So more than just a basic blood draw, right? I can use urine, saliva, stool, and blood to figure out exactly what is going on in the body. And I will say lab work is not 100% accurate. Right? It is very helpful, and it helps guide treatment to be sure that we're streamlined with our approach to addressing your symptoms. Here we're talking fatigue, but it's not 100% accurate, right? So that's just something that we have to keep in mind. Okay. That being said, it is a huge guiding force and I absolutely use it. The other thing to know about functional lab testing, I look at a lot more things, right? So more comprehensive lab testing with smaller reference ranges. Okay. So for example, vitamin D, right? The reference range is like you're deficient below 30. Well, for me, you're deficient below 50. Okay. So these functional ranges kind of bring in the result to a tighter value. So we can understand, okay, are you really deficient or are you subclinically deficient, and we want to optimize how your body is functioning. Okay. So that's kind of the fatigue thing. And again, based on the root cause is what I'm going to base my treatment off of. So if it's low B vitamins or low iron, well, I'm going to give that, right, in specific dosing. If it is mold, well, we're going to have a full conversation about where mold is coming from, how to get out of the environment, and how to get that mold and mycotoxin out of your body, right? So again, very, very specific with the treatment plans. At the end, I will talk about some things that kind of on a grander basis where it's not an individualized suggestion. I can give some thoughts about what we can do about energy in terms of supplements and nutrition and lifestyle as well. But again, it's not going to be specific. It's going to be kind of generalized. So let's talk about sleep. Okay, so problems falling asleep, staying asleep, quality of sleep, right? Problems falling asleep. You know, what is the cause there? Very simply, it could be that we're on screens too late at night. We're overstimulating our brain and our eyes. Therefore, we can't shut down. We can't, go to sleep. It could be stress. Maybe it's not scrolling, but it's just stress, kind of rumination, overthinking, thinking about plans for the next day. That can be a cause of challenges falling asleep. Other causes can be low melatonin. It can be, again, environmental, loud noises, partner snoring, not tired, right? It can also be hormonal. Okay, so with problems falling asleep, similarly, we want to address the root cause, right? So if it's low melatonin, we want to give some melatonin. I don't often give melatonin. It's overused. Okay. Not everybody needs melatonin. Not everybody responds well to melatonin. So there's several other things that we want to do. But first thing I always suggest is creating a regular sleep routine. So this is sleep hygiene, right? What is my nighttime routine to help signal my body that it's time for sleep? Okay. Is it an herbal tea at bedtime? Is it journaling? Is it meditation? Is it a shower? Is it sharing your day with your partner? Is it reading a book, right? Whatever you do, and it could be several of those things, but whatever you do to help signal to your body, it's time to go to sleep. It's time to start winding down. The other thing that I like to suggest is dimming lights. So darkness, low lights, that signals your melatonin coming from your pineal gland to secrete itself naturally. Okay, so that's why oftentimes in the winter, if we're not too stimulated by our screens and light, we actually get tired earlier because it's darker earlier, and so our melatonin kicks in. That's in a healthy individual, right? So we want to dim those lights, right? Try to avoid the screens, okay? And again, calm the nervous system. So that's kind of the basic of a nighttime routine, and doing it at the same time in the same way every night. Okay, so ideally we want to be getting in bed and falling asleep around the same time every single night. And that's also the same for the morning. We want to wake up at the same time every morning, whether it's a work day or a weekend. I know sometimes that is not always extremely realistic, but that's the goal, because that's going to help regulate your circadian rhythm, your sleep-wake cycle, to tell your body, oh, it's time to wake up. Oh, it's time to go to sleep, right? And so that can help with keeping energy stable throughout the day, okay? So that's falling asleep. Now staying asleep, and this one can be harder, right? Staying asleep, many people wake several times throughout the night. The challenge is when you can't fall back asleep, right? We all generally wake at least once in the middle of the night, but can you fall back asleep? And if you're waking up and not able to fall back asleep, well, what's going on for you, right? Is it night sweats? Is it bad dreams? Is it rumination, anxiety, stress, hunger, right? All of these different aspects of sleep that we want to figure out how we can keep you asleep, okay? The number one cause for what I see is blood sugar imbalances, okay? Blood sugar is blood glucose, right? And when we eat, it increases. When we're fasting, it either stays stable or drops. So when we have hypoglycemia or low blood sugar during the day, that is basically if you feel hangry, if you kind of get sweaty, shaky, irritable, kind of like you want to bite someone's head off, that's low blood sugar. Or you're somebody who always has to have something in their bag to eat every 2 hours because otherwise they won't feel well. That's hypoglycemia, okay? Very, very, very common, but not necessarily normal. Now that's to say that shouldn't be happening, right? So it's not something to be, scared of per se, but it is something to signal, well, there is an imbalance in something going on in your body, and we can fix that. And oftentimes when people have that low blood sugar, they actually experience more fatigue, right? So something to keep in mind throughout the day. One of the best ways to combat that outside of, specific supplementation, or other ways of treatment is to just have protein at every meal and snack, because protein is going to help keep your blood sugar stable. It's going to be satiating for your system, and it takes longer to use that protein energy and to digest it. So it should last longer. Now, when we're talking overnight low blood sugar, that can be that you have hypoglycemia during the day, so when you're fasting overnight, your blood sugar also drops. When your blood sugar drops, your cortisol will spike. The reason why that cortisol spikes is to bring that blood glucose back up. And oftentimes that wakes people up in the middle of the night, and sometimes it can be hard to fall back asleep. So the first thing that I always do for people who have a hard time staying asleep is to have a little protein or a fat snack right before bed. A little bit. This is maybe one slice of deli turkey, a little bit of cheese if you tolerate it, maybe a little bit of protein yogurt, could be half a protein shake, something that's light, easy to digest, but will help keep those blood sugars stable. Super important. And sometimes that's all we need. Sometimes that in itself keeps people's blood sugar stable overnight and they stay asleep. Okay. Other causes though that can also be treated are depression. Okay. And sometimes it's just finding the right medication. Sometimes it's figuring out what else is involved in that depression that is causing the sleep disruption. And then hormones. And hormones are a really, really big one. As we get into perimenopause, menopause, and even for those who have imbalanced hormones at a younger age, those can affect sleep. And it is, a combination between estrogen and progesterone being too low. Low estrogen causes the night sweats, the hot flashes, and that in itself can wake people up. But progesterone is also very calming. That's a very calming hormone that can help you fall asleep and stay asleep. Okay, so if we have low hormones or they're starting to kind of change, that in itself can affect sleep. So we want to support your hormone levels in that way. Okay. And then stress is a major one outside of blood sugar association, but stress can either impact falling asleep and or staying asleep. So the thing with stress, and this is cortisol, right? When we're stressed, we have high cortisol. Or when we've been too stressed for too long, we actually end up having low cortisol. It's like your adrenals can't keep up with demand and they actually kind of poop out for a little bit or for a while. And that very low cortisol can cause extreme fatigue, and also can cause changes in sleep. Okay. So what can we do on a daily basis to help relieve stress, right? Sometimes we can't get out of the stressful environment. We have to work, or we have to, manage our kids, or we have to deal with a dog that, not that you don't want to, but it's a stressful environment. So how can we relieve our stress on a daily basis? How can we relieve our stress on a weekly basis? And how can we relieve our stress on a monthly basis? This is what I like to suggest to people. Find something to do daily, weekly, monthly to help calm and reduce your stress. Okay. This is to me called closing the stress cycle. Because if we wake up, our cortisol spikes, that's natural right away in the morning. Our cortisol will spike. It should be highest in the morning and it slowly decreases throughout the day. But if we're waking with high cortisol and it's staying high, we need to close that stress cycle at nighttime so that it signals to our body it's time for sleep, and we will deal with this in the morning, putting our thoughts, our stress to bed in a sense, and allowing for the stress to come the next day as it will or as it needs to, okay? So situationally, high stress can obviously impact sleep, but where this is, oftentimes the more daily, recurrent, chronic stress that we really want to be mindful of. And so, daily stress relief could be journaling, meditation, calling your best friend. It could be going on a walk after work. It could be snuggling with your kids or your dog or your partner. It could be a daily exercise workout, right? That is where you are intentionally relieving your stress. Okay, on a weekly basis, it might be a hike with a girlfriend. It might be, making your favorite tea drink. I don't know, or baking. It might be going out for, coffee and avocado toast once a week. Whatever it is for you. On that weekly basis. And then monthly is more like, okay, are we going to take, a day off a month to do nothing? Is it a monthly massage? Is it a monthly treat yourself to taking your favorite hike? Well, whatever it is, these are just off the top of my head, but find something that you can relieve your stress daily, weekly, monthly to help bring that cortisol down on a regular basis so it's not impacting your health. Because not only can stress affect energy and sleep, it can affect all systems in your body. And I will say that stress is a major underlying cause for almost all chronic disease, all of it. Okay, so really important to manage your stress, to keep your body healthy and functioning optimally. Okay, so last thing I want to get into with fatigue is, if we already know what the cause is, okay, great. Let's affect that. Let's rebalance that. But sometimes we don't know. And sometimes before we can know, we need a little support. So this is not medical advice. This does not take the place of seeing a practitioner, but there are some things outside of some of that lifestyle stuff that I already mentioned that you can do to help increase your stress. So I already mentioned stress relief. What about nutrition? It's so important to have a regular, healthy diet every day. Okay, so fasting can be very hard on the body for certain people, and it can be fatiguing for certain people. Okay, so we want to have regular meals as much as possible. And we want to prioritize protein at every meal and snack. And we want to get rid of processed and ultra-processed foods. Those do not serve our body. They're inflammatory. Okay, inflammation is another underlying cause of most chronic disease, including fatigue. Okay, disease, aka symptoms. So we really want to be mindful of what we're putting in our body. We want quality proteins. We want various different kinds and colors of fruits and vegetables. We do want carbohydrates because carbohydrates actually do help with energy stabilization. It's just that if you're going to have a carbohydrate, try to have that with a protein or a fat so that it's not affecting your blood sugar like crazy, okay? Because if we have a banana that's like maybe sort of on the ripe side and we have it right away in the morning, your blood sugar is gonna skyrocket and then drop super low. So if we're gonna have a banana, A, we want it a little bit more green, but B, we want it with a little bit of fat or protein. That goes for pretty much all carbohydrate. So a piece of toast, let's do that with avocado, or a piece of turkey, right? So you kind of get what I mean by that. Keeping our blood sugar stable, which is going to be energizing, okay? Okay, and then also trying to cut out excess sugar. That is not going to be helpful for energy or blood sugars or hormones or anything, okay? And then we do get to supplementation. So as a naturopathic doctor, I do use supplementation. I use it in a very targeted manner. And I can also prescribe if you are a patient of mine, again, in a very targeted manner. Okay, so I do prescribe, but it is not my first choice. All right, I'm always gonna try to do something different first. So again, we want to figure out the root cause and identify that, ideally with lab work. We want to address our lifestyle, stress, sleep, movement. I forgot about that. That is extremely important for normalizing hormones, and not saying HIIT or running 10 miles, or it's just moving your body, okay? There's all different kinds of exercise, and what works for you might not work for somebody else, okay? I'm a huge fan of lifting weights. It doesn't have to be high intensity. Okay, that can be extremely fatiguing for adrenals or hormones if you're already having challenges with the endocrine system, okay? But exercise helps keep blood sugar stable, it reduces inflammation, it boosts our mood, and it can also help with energy, okay? So I actually work out right away in the morning because that to me boosts my energy and gets me ready for the day. It clears my head, allows me to focus much better. I don't even need coffee, okay, or caffeine when I work out. It just naturally boosting, and I like to do it in the morning, but other research says that some people perform much better in the afternoon for exercise. Okay, so again, lifestyle, we've got stress relief, sleep, hygiene, we have healthy nutrition and movement. Okay, and then again, we get to supplementation. So, with this, it's a little bit tough because again, we really want to get to the root cause. So I'm not going to give iron to everybody who has fatigue. That's not a good idea, right? But there are some things that you can utilize that can help to increase energy. One is ashwagandha, right? That's one that a lot of people talk about. A ton of people talk about, actually. I use that sparingly only because it is overused. And so sometimes I find that I want to get a little bit more specific than just ashwagandha. But the cool thing about ashwagandha is that if your cortisol is up here, or if, your energy is up here, it kind of modulates you. And if you're down here with energy or cortisol, it kind of brings you up. So it's really modulating. Turmeric is another one. If you can tolerate turmeric, it's anti-inflammatory, again, because inflammation is generally part of the picture with most presentations of fatigue. And then B vitamins can also be really wonderful for energy, because while B12 is energizing, there's other B vitamins that are actually more calming. And so I like to use a complex with methylated B9 and B12 because that takes off the stress for anybody that has challenges with methylation. So that can be a trial because a lot of us are deficient in B vitamins, but again, not a substitution for proper medical care, or if you have extreme fatigue, not a substitution for that. Again, as we get into the more complex causes of fatigue, it takes much more than ashwagandha and turmeric, right? It gets much more specific with ways that we need to manage energy and the causes of fatigue, because we need to support the body's ability to rebalance itself and get rid of anything that is causing, the fatigue or contributing to it. So again, hopefully that was helpful in terms of fatigue and a few ways that you can manage your lifestyle to support fatigue. But if you have more questions, you can leave them in the comments. You can also reach out to me, Dr. Alioto_NMD on Instagram. I'm also currently right now at Regenerate Health Medical Center in Santa Barbara. We take telemedicine clients and in person. That being said, I hope that was helpful for you. And if you need more support, reach out. Okay, thanks so much.